let's talk about family life in the DR. For those that just moved here or they're planning to move, what are childcare options like?
So, childcare here, I think, is like one of the big reasons that families are comfortable here in the DR, right? So, if you want to have a nanny or if you want to have your child go to like a daycare in the States, like how much is that really nowadays? Like, I think you were telling me some crazy number that's almost like a salary, right?
Yeah.
And then here, we're one part of the narrative is, well, yeah, you're kind of taking advantage of the lower salaries and stuff like that. But I see that most expats and most Dominicans that move back, they tend to kind of overpay, help out, give opportunity.
Yeah.
Really, it's a struggle because I've seen that having a nanny at home or having someone for childcare is very hit or miss.
Yeah.
And we've heard that from like all our friends, where it's like, well, some people are like, well, I've been with someone for like 2-3 years, and others are, well, I have 5 in a year, right? And it's just it's easier in some ways and harder in others.
Yeah.
The easier is typically you might want to be paying from 20 to 30,000 pesos.
Right.
I think if you want to really go overboard and help, like maybe 35.
Now that's for, just to be clear.
Yeah.
That's for a living nanny. Is that for a full-time?
I've seen, the funny thing is I haven't seen a pattern. I know there is one, but maybe it's just I haven't like done looked into the night stay nannies as much. Everyone that has worked with me has been like, they come to my home and they leave at the end of the day.
Right.
But typically I've seen them be about the same range.
Right.
But a stay-in nanny, gets a place to sleep.
Right.
They usually eat there.
Yep.
They benefit from the household.
Right. They don't have to worry about rent,
Right.
food.
Right.
That's all included. So so it makes sense why it would be about the same. Because they're getting more perks if it's something that would benefit them, right?
Right. I will say another thing, just family life here, being able to do that, being able to have someone help with kids is a big thing, because I think in the States we've gotten like so separated from families that it's like it takes a village.
Yeah.
Anymore. It's more like, well, you're on your own.
Everybody for themselves.
And everybody, put your kids in daycare, and it's not the same quality of care, right?
Yeah.
Like here you have someone and they can dedicate time. Now, is it quality care? It really depends on who you find and what are the standards that you ask of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. We're all human, right? And so it really depends. Everybody's different. I think for the most part, of what I've seen, me personal with my experiences and what I've seen around the people that I know with their experiences, like yourself, it tends to be a little bit more care oriented, right?
Right.
Just because the culture here, right? It's ingrained in the culture. And going back to what you said about the price and people that come from other countries like the U.S. not caring about giving a little bit more, it's because also you appreciate it. Like you mentioned, I had told you how much I was paying, right? I was paying like $2,400 a month for
$400,
right? For daycare, right?
Right.
I mean, more than my mortgage, right? And when you come to this country and you're like, obviously the labor, income is completely different, right? And so when you are making, let's say, dollars or euros or whatever it is, or a good salary even in this country,
right,
which is hard to come by, but that's neither here nor there, then you are more willing to hook them up or give them be more appreciative. You're definitely more appreciative is the point, right? And so that's definitely a thing. Let me ask you, it's somebody that lives here, right? That just moved here, or that is looking to live here, right, and move here. Where would they find, like, where would be a good place for them to start looking for childcare?
Okay, so anecdotally, right, like I've tried like an agency didn't go too well, right? But like I said, I'm one person. I only tried, I think, maybe like two. The best have been just referrals.
Yeah.
Like you need to have a network that knows that it's like they recommend someone, and then it's not even a sure thing. That referral might not even do it. Like but for the most part, it's everything here is who you know that knows the right people.
Yeah.
And that applies too.
Yeah. I've experienced the same thing. I have not gone with an agency. I've heard how that works from you and from others.
Right.
I would not be comfortable with that, but I do understand that some people might not know, where to go. By the way, Dominican Bridge, right? Our community is a perfect place. We see it all the time, right?
Right.
And just for those listening in or watching, if you identify yourself as someone that is looking for these services, I would implore anyone to reach out to us, because we have other platforms that we don't really publicly talk about, where that would help out for any information. So definitely reach out to us if you're listening to this and you feel like you would like a lot more personalized information, because we have it. We just don't publicly talk about it, but we have certain platforms where people communicate. Let's leave it at that. Just reach out to us and we'll let you know.
There is the other options for like childcare for me is that I was kind of like a little bit impacted was like just seeing schools here, or like it's not a school, but like pre-K or not pre-K. What is it?
Pre-kinder, or what do you mean?
It's like a daycare here, yeah, but it's like there are daycares here that are not certified as schools, and it's like before they go into school. I had my kids in a school like that, which then eventually certified as a school. I'm not a sponsor, but I will mention them on Be Well. So
that was a popular one.
Yeah, in Santiago, and I was like, wow, I've seen daycares in New York. I've seen how my wife worked at a daycare. Right. And I would hear the stories of it's not that it's bad. It's just not like what I'm seeing here, which is
different.
It is different. But I think the culture is also part of it, which is
100%. 100% the culture is a part of it.
Right. It's like the people there care about the kids.
Yeah.
And I see it in the schools that my kids are in now. And I saw it there, and it was just something that I can't let go in my mind of how priceless that is.
It's priceless,
right?
And it's very important. To your point, in my experience, same thing, right? I've seen people in daycares in the States, as I was talking in Florida, because I had my kids in Florida while my time in Florida, where there are a few of the employees that are, very much in this position because they love kids, right?
Right.
But it's not all of them, and I just here I've seen that's always all of them, right? Like
right.
I'm sure there's some that is not the case, but what I've seen is I go by the eye test and but by what I hear around me, and what I'm seeing is whereas in the States, in my experience, there were a few sometimes that were very, very good. It's almost like they were being kind of penalized or judged by their counterparts, their coworkers. Like, why do you care so much? Like, this is just a job, right?
Right.
Whereas over here, it's like, no, this is part of who I am,
right?
And so that's what I've noticed. I'm sure it's not like that everywhere, but in my experience, that's what it's been.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Anthony. Like we're both, we both have kids. We both have kids in school. What has been your experience with like private schools here? Because we neither of us really have the experience of like public school. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about there, but just from our experiences with like private school, what would you say are things that people should know?
So, I mean, as you know, I had my son in one of the top schools, right? One of the top 3 schools that people talk about here are the top 3 or 5 schools in Santiago. Maybe number 1, number 2, doesn't matter, but it's the top 3 to 5 schools.
Right.
And now switch them to another one that's also top 2, arguably probably the top school again, both of them being top 2 or 3, right? And I think it's just completely different, right? Even from when I went to school as a kid, which I feel like, of course, I'm going to be biased because I'm thinking, okay, in the 90s, it was so much better than it is right now in the States. That's, personal opinion, right? Many people tend to agree with me, but that doesn't mean it's right. It's just my opinion, right? Everything I say is my opinion. And so even comparing with then, but compared to now, it's night and day.
Right.
It's night and day. I absolutely love it. The way they interact with the kids, what's important to them, their curriculum, and they're very into it. They take it serious.
Right.
And you could tell because when a school's administration process might not be that great, it's like, well, where are they paying attention to? What are they paying attention to at that point? The kids. What the most important part, the kids, their education, their experience, and what's interesting to me is that at the new school that I put my son in for this school year, they have a lot of reviews by the students, usually older students, and it's always 5 stars. And I thought that was interesting. It's like they really like going to school. Like I've seen it with my son.
Yeah.
In the States, he didn't want to go to daycare. He'd be like, no, I want to stay home. He's young.
Isn't that typical though? Like kids in elementary school not wanting to go to school for this?
It's very
like I remember me being like that.
Yes,
exactly.
Likewise. And so that's why I thought it was strange because last year, we had just gotten here, so he was a little bit being like that, but he very much wanted to go to school. Now it's evolved into like he's never complaining about going to school. He's still very young. I mean, he's 5 and a half.
Let me tell you something. So my daughter, she the other day, she got a little bit sick, and she had to miss school, right? She was upset. Like I thought, she was gonna be just upset because she's sick or she couldn't do a lot of things, but she was upset because she couldn't go to school. That was the number one problem, and I don't know. I haven't seen that as typical. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the States, but it's not something that I see typically,
Well, let's talk about pricing, right?
Yeah.
What is the typical range of prices that someone moving here can expect for their kids in these type of schools?
Yeah. So what I've seen is, and I've gotten like pricing from a couple good schools here in Santiago, is you're gonna look to pay anywhere from, depending on age, like 17,000 at the low end for a school that maybe someone from the States would consider.
That's for 2 kids.
No, that's 1 kid.
For 1 kid.
So we're talking about 17,000 pesos a month.
Oh, you're talking about pesos.
Pesos, right?
Okay.
Now, well, I'll get to the dollar amount, but up from 17 up to anywhere from like I think it's 25 from the mid range to like maybe 30,000 something, 30,000 pesos a month.
Right.
So in the year, we're looking at from 8 to 12 grand a year if you take into account like lunches, uniforms, extracurriculars, like trips and things like that. There are cheaper schools, but I think that's the range that people that are, if you're coming here with like a U.S. salary, if you're coming here with a business, maybe you're gonna consider that range in schooling.
Right. Yeah. I've noticed the same thing. Like me personally, talking in dollars because I'm not as well versed, with the pesos when it comes to these payments.
Yeah,
I see that the same thing around 8,000 to 12,000. Now it depends how old, obviously, your kid is, right? Because that changes not by much, but it starts changing. The older they are, obviously, the more it's going to be, but it's not that much more, right? Considering everything. And so, yeah, that's what I've seen. It could be, just the actual school price, right? For the school tuition could be 4,000 to 7,000, but then there's admin fees, right? For some schools don't have that. And like you said, when you consider all of the material, which some schools provide, some, so it really depends on the school. That's why we're talking in averages. Then it starts going up. Extracurricular activities, I know you have your daughter and some of them, you probably want to talk about that a little bit because you came up with some good points on the differences between the States and here with extracurricular activities and its prices, right?
So, so I have my daughter like in piano class once a week. And a lot of times I think about, well, if I'm in the States and this is something completely separate, completely not part of the school tuition or curriculum, how much would that really cost over there? Like in person with an instructor. And then I have my kids in these extracurriculars and, it works and they like it and they're happy. So this is like when you're deciding if you're going to move here or how you're going to live here, all of these things factor into the decision of how happy you are or how comfortable you think you're going to be living here,
Yeah. And, by the way, these schools that we are mentioning are bilingual, right?
Right.
The first one I had my son is a U.S. accredited school. Okay, right. The only one in Santiago is
I think there might be other ones. We will need to like really dig in, but is the one that's like most known for.
That's most known. That's Santiago Christian School, right? It's U.S. accredited, right? Those that feel like that's important, and they primarily teach in English, right? They do have Spanish class. Everybody knows Spanish. There's a lot of American faculties is very, there's a lot of Americans within the faculty, a lot of the teachers, principals, even I know, I think the principal is from the U.S. is not really tied to DR at all. And so that school, for those that would value those things, does provide that. And then the other schools we're talking about are bilingual in some capacity, right? Whether it's 50-50, whether it's 80-20, whatever it is, it's something that I notice here right away, right? And just talking to anyone and what my experiences is that when you're looking at high school graduates, right? Graduates that by the way go to like Ivy League schools in the U.S.
Right.
And all the top schools in Europe, they all know English. Right.
Yes.
So it's that's not a thing. It doesn't matter almost what school you go to. Any of the top schools
are going to teach English.
Right. If you're in that class, right, because how this country is with class,
right,
you're going to know English and you're going to know it well. I have friends that I met that are originally from here and went in their 20s. Shout out to Steve and Jeff and that awesome family. They speak English better than you and I. I mean, you met Steve, and so and he graduated from all the good schools here, right? And he went to SCS and those type of schools, and so that's something that's very common here.
Yeah. So let's talk about like the process of moving here and like citizenship, whether you were born here or there, getting documents for your kids. How does that process? I know that you were recently like working on stuff.
Yeah, so I'm currently in that process. So first of all, it's not very different than it was for me, right? I was born in the States. Right. My parents are Dominican, obviously. And this was 8-9 years ago. The process for adults may be a little bit different, but I don't think so. From what I understand, it's about the same.
Right.
You get the documentation, whether it's cédula, birth certificate from your parents, the Dominican birth certificate and or cédula, and you go through that process. Is very similar with kids. My wife, she's the Dominican born. Right. And so although I have become a dual citizen, Dominican citizen about, I don't know, I think 9 years ago now, I could have done it with that. From what I understand, it was way easier to do it with my wife because she's, she had birth certificate born here. Right. I have a translated, which I think is interesting. They translate your birth certificate not as if you were born here, but in Spanish. And so you have your Dominican birth certificate born in the U.S.
Yes.
But that's the process, right? And that's what makes you a naturalized citizen or a citizen of the Dominican Republic. So
you're not naturalized.
Right, exactly. So with the kids, it's the same thing. It's the same process. You go, you look for that. The only difference, I would say, is because they're not adults, they're not going to be getting their cédulas.
Yeah.
Right.
They
So
just
for
get a number, right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, my kids got one.
And so they become a Dominican or dual citizen, right? Because my kids were born in the U.S. and
Right.
they're American citizens. So they'll become dual citizens.
Right.
And you, like I said, you won't get your cedula until you're older, right?
How long did that take?
It could take, it depends how you do it, right? It could take as little as, and it depends at what time. Right now, we could probably make, kind of guess as to why this is happening, right? We'll get into that, but they are very backed up.
Really?
Yes, they're very backed up. Everybody wants to do it.
Okay.
Not just in DR, I would imagine other countries as well. I mean, we talk
Right,
about
right.
this all the time, what's happening right now, right?
Right.
But they're very backed up, so it takes maybe a little bit longer, but I think it's still a few months, right?
Right.
A few months from start to finish. When I did it, it was a lot quicker and only took longer because I was living in Florida and I had to go through the Queens County clerk and Albany and all this back and forth, where now, Vital Check, they'll give you the long form birth certificate,
Right.
with it being apostilled and stuff like that from your state and all that. So the process is more streamlined now. And so, but with the kids, like I said, you become a citizen. Now that comes with certain, ramifications or, if we should talk about that, right? When your kids become Dominican citizens, now, if both parents, for example, in my situation, are here in the Dominican Republic and one parent wants to then travel with the kids,
that's
right.
true.
That's something that everybody should know of.
Yeah.
Because
You need a letter.
I've heard of situations where it's a nightmare, right?
Right.
You need a letter. You need a certified letter. I think you have to go to Santo Domingo, to the capital, right, to do this.
Maybe a lawyer can do it.
A lawyer should be able to do it for you. I've heard of that as well.
Right.
But you do need to go through this process, because
Right.
if not, they will not let you leave with your kid.
Correct.
Because they don't know if you're abducting your kid. Same
Correct.
thing in the U.S. And so know that, yes, you're going to save on the taxes of being here that you have to pay when you're not a Dominican citizen, right? When you're leaving, you have to pay, each month,
yeah.
you have to pay 30.
Yeah, to leave
90
the
days.
fee, the tourist fee.
Correct. So yeah, you're saving on that, and your kids are citizens, and they, and all that good stuff. But you do want to be conscious of that. I've heard nightmare stories of people coming here and then trying to leave, and then they don't allow them to leave to go visit or whatnot, and they can't reach out to, like, this was a mother. This specific story, she had no idea she had cut all ties with the dad. So how do you then find out where the dad is, and for him to sign it was a nightmare, right? And I've heard
Right.
other things where you just lose money and time. He's like,
Yeah.
oh man, I didn't know that. Now you got to go back, and so it's important to know these things. But let me ask you, I know your situation is a little different, right? I think your kids were born here, right?
Yeah. So it's a different process. Obviously, we're kind of like in a little bit inverse, right? So it's like me and my wife, we were born here. We're both, but we came U.S. citizens, naturalized, spent our lives in the U.S. Before coming here. And when we were gonna look at when we were gonna have a child, and we were looking at insurance, and we were looking at how does the legal paperwork work, to do the dual citizenship and all of that. I noticed that with our health insurance and with the process at the embassy, I'm like, yeah, it makes no sense. I don't know why there's some people I've seen that they're like, yeah, let me go to the States, have my kids born over there, and then come back, when you have the option to just do it here.
Right.
So,
And that's sometimes because there's a lack of information out there.
I mean, I think that's part of it. And then also it's like, if you have your kid in the States with or without insurance, how much is that going to cost you? Right? We're talking about thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So for childbirth, right?
Yeah.
Here,
Many thousands of dollars. Yeah.
many, I
30 grand or something. I
Come
think
on.
that's what, my last kid. Yeah. That's
I would not know.
grand.
That's how much it was charged, the
Yeah,
hospital?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I would not know. So my bill for childbirth, I think, was basically the water bottles that I use for the room and the COVID test.
that's crazy.
Yeah. and basically the COVID test for me to be in the room during childbirth, that was the total cost, because I had a very good insurance.
Right.
Right. So I'm thinking to myself, I don't need to pay 15 grand or 10 grand, even with insurance in the States for childbirth. When here, my bill, I think, was 1,500 pesos, $30 at the time, I think it was.
A lot less.
Right. It was $30. And then I spent, I think it was like 200, 250 at the U.S. Embassy. Right. So there you take all your paperwork. And mind you, it was very easy for us. It was very easy for me and my wife because we both grew up in the States.
Right.
If you have only one parent that is a U.S. citizen or that grew up in the States, like even if that parent recently became a U.S. citizen but didn't spend the last 5 years, I think it is, or total of 5 years in the last couple of years, the process is different. So for our process, it was kind of streamlined since we're both from the States, both U.S. citizens. They kind of, they asked us some questions. Where did I go to high school? Things like that. Just really simple background stuff. And then we got the certificate of birth abroad basically sent to us. And then that's their U.S. birth certificate, which, mind you, is not a naturalization. It's you're born American.
Right.
This is the certificate of that. So that process, the only thing I think was a struggle was just the time to get to the embassy, which is something for another story because the capital traffic is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So if you're going to going to the embassy, be very, very, very early. But overall, I would recommend someone have your kids here in the DR if you can. If you are American and you could just go through that process instead of having to have, be far from your home if you live here.
Yeah.
Right. And having to go spend a lot of money in the US.
Right.
When all of that can be done here.
Yeah. And I would, say it's advised to do your own due diligence, right?
Correct.
Because these laws, I don't know when you're consuming this, whoever's listening in. So laws and regulations change, right?
This is just our personal experience. We're not saying, we don't have a lawyer here or someone kind of vetting all of this stuff.
Exactly.
But I will say that if you are going to use insurance here, make sure you speak your intentions to the insurance company so that you are aware of what are the conditions that what happened to me can happen to you.